Oh, hey. Should get the professionals in. So lads, how you been?
Well, I don't know whether you've noticed, lads, but I have fucked my leg.
Bit of tea?
Yes, please.
It's good to catch up, isn't it, Dom?
Very good to catch up, mate.
Bit of milk, sugar?
I'll have some milk, actually.
Just milk, please.
This is good.
Thanks for putting the spread on, George.
Nah, anytime, mate. Come round
Mate.
mine anytime.
Is it tied out? We're all rationed on tea, is it?
Get the party.
Good man.
We're alright. No sugars.
Nah. Sweet enough Turkish.
So, Foxy, told me you hurt your foot at work.
Yeah,
How's recovery?
it's alright. It is, I've never broken anything before.
Yeah.
So it has been, if I'm honest, a shock to the system. I've had a little injury here and there, but nothing on this scale. And so, yeah, I snapped my fib and I've broken my tib in a couple of places. Had an op on it. I'm now nearly 4 weeks post-op. So on to partial weight bearing this week coming, which I'm looking forward to because I have been sort of incapacitated a little bit. As well, you two know, didn't you?
Yeah. What have you done?
Yeah, only too much. A few operations, Foxy. I think between us we've had 15 operations.
It's not a good stat. It's
Which
not
is,
one you want to be chucking around, that.
Which is interesting.
Shows that you put a shift in.
Or you're just an absolute target. One or two.
I find it interesting, obviously, that's the first time you've broken ended, but you've obviously been in some pretty interesting situations. What other injuries have you had?
None. I've broken my nose a few times, but
You're just too good, were you?
I think I was a little bit too fast.
Like the Matrix?
Like, yeah, exactly. It's just dodging bullets. I think a lot of it's luck. I mean, I've been stood next to people that have been shot and I haven't been shot, and been in that sort of situation. You actually sort of, when those sort of things happen, there is a lot of morbid humour that creeps in, and I'm sure it's the same, isn't it? You know, you get injured, it's a bit of a thing, but then you've got to somehow deal with it. And I've been very good at helping, I think. I've been very good at it. I have tried to be good at helping people through tough times by being a bit of a laugh, trying to keep them positive, you know, make sure that everyone's firing on all cylinders. But it's different, isn't it, when you pick up the injury yourself. You have to, it doesn't matter how resilient you are in other situations, if you haven't been privy to something that is essentially seen as a negative and you're not used to it, you have to start digging into yourself a little bit, don't you?
Yeah.
It's so easy, I have found with this, to be a little bit fed up.
Yeah. Well, like, especially say in sport, like you're immediately going from maybe playing every week in, week out to then going at isolated scenarios where you're kind of in the rehab group, which might be 2, 3, 4 of you. You're doing monotonous sort of rehab bits. I assume you've been doing that already, right?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm at that phase where I pretty much post-op, I was told not to do anything because there's metal work in there. Obviously, they're worried about infection, sweat.
Yeah.
And
You'll get stuck into that. It's like short reps over and over and over and over. It's the most boring bits about injury, I reckon. But
it was what I found hard, because the first half of my career, like, I was so lucky with injuries, and then it was actually literally as I hit 30. I don't know if that was a sign, but when I hit 30, I just started breaking down like constantly, and like I was so used to like being out training with the lads every day, and it's like you said, you go into a different scenario, which is the physio room. Usually, like, you're in at 7 a.m. every day. There's usually like 3 or 4 lads, and you're a bit segmented from the rest of the team, and it's just like mentally that's just such a different thing to deal with. But like being able to like bounce off different people, like the physio was obviously great at Saracens. Like, they were brilliant at just kind of having a bit of a laugh to like keep spirits up. but like it was super tough just to focus and get through that, because you do feel like I felt a bit embarrassed when I was injured sometimes, because like everyone else is out there like doing the job, and you're just kind of sat there in a physio bed, and people are walking through all the time and like just looking at you, and it was like, oh, they're just thinking like
weakling.
Yeah.
But I think that the ones where clearly like you've broken your leg, there's nothing you can do about. I think that the tougher ones might be the concussions, or sort of, you know, it's that sort of a mental health side which you don't really like. It's not quantifiable. You can't say right, like you're either good or you're not. There's people, you overthink it sometimes. I think that's an area which I'm sure, you know, in high pressure situations as well, there's plenty of mental health sort of issues and struggles, but might be quite hard to voice them. Or
This is the easiest thing to quantify and like justify, because you're like, I've broken my leg, and everyone's like, whoa, take it easy, mate. Well, I don't fucking mean it, but they're like, take it easy, do this, do that, unless they're pissed, which means they just gravitate towards it. But ultimately, it's easy to, you know, people know you fall off a curb, whatever it is, and you hurt yourself. Oh yeah. But then when you're sort of like having to deal with feeling different within yourself, it's very difficult to justify that, because no one else knows what you're going through. And you know, when I got medically discharged from the military for PTSD, for what it was called PTSD and chronic burnout. And it's weird, I got medically discharged for something you can't see. And people are like looking at you going, well, what's wrong with him? And I'm like, they're thinking, well, yeah, what is wrong with me? And I'm like, everyone's there going, oh, it must have been because of all that stuff that you were doing. And I'm like, it isn't. That's the one thing everyone keeps saying, oh, it's because you went away and you did crazy stuff. I says, it's not. I says, I was trained for years and years and years to deal with that. And I was good at it. But what was happening at the same time was life. No one ever taught me how to deal with life. No one had taught me how to have an argument with my missus, what to do when the washing machine breaks down and you've got no money. You know, kids, divorce, whatever it is, all that life, no one teaches you to deal with that, and that's when it sort of compounds.
Do you think that's from going like a routine to something you're so used to then go into like something which, you know, you might feel it creeping up on you, which is just daunting? I know, and especially in sport, there's like that anxiety, fear side of it when you're stopping, but and then you know there's just not that many that are prepared for it, and
that's because you don't want to think about it.
Yeah,
because you're doing something that you love. Like I had not once had I thought about leaving. I was like, I mean, I'd thought about leaving in the early stages when I was a youngster, because you're like, do I like this? Then all of a sudden, within a 6-month period, I've stopped, been told I'm damaged in some way, shape or form, and then I'm outside, I've left, and I'm like, I have not thought about what I'm doing here. And I wish I could go back and be like, at the very beginning of my career, go, just keep thinking about, this is a great life, it's a great job, but it does not last forever. Just look at everyone in front of you. They all stop at about, you know, most people, 22-year point, which is a career, is like 38. That was my end point. Really.
That seems to be a constant conversation still in sport, isn't it? Rugby, like in particular, because like they earn good money as rugby players, but it's not money for the majority. 90%, 95% of rugby players need a job when they finish. That's like hammering in like constantly the fact, like George is big on it, the fact that you need to be preparing whilst you're playing. But and this is like you said, like you don't want to think about finishing because you're just loving it so much the day to day. But then like you're only one training session, one game away ever really from like retiring.
One contract,
one decision away from being screwed.
Yeah, a lot of the times it's not in your hands as well. It's just.
The other thing is like people that do these sort of things, whether it's what I did, what you guys did, they're normally like good time people. You've never got any money anyway. So whatever comes in, you're just blowing it. You're not thinking about the future.
Yeah.
And if there was only a way of like being able to coach youngsters now, I don't know. I presume they must do it to a certain degree, but it's like I know I sound like an old idiot.
But like we would have had those people all sat in front of us, and when we were sitting there like smirking and playing around in the background. And like, I'm glad that we've got stuff post rugby, but you know, there's definitely heaps that don't, and it's just so easy to get caught up in not thinking about it and thinking that rugby or military is the only thing. I think it's tough. You need that. You need like a cut through. But what is it? Because we've also, like I said, we sat in that same position and we would have laughed. And you know, 5 years later, then I'm thinking, oh, probably actually should start doing something. But you know, between 22 and 27 or so, you know, if I'd been injured, we would have been in a poor position as well. So
obviously I got medically discharged, and that process was 6 months, which, you know, I did 20 years, and then within 6 months it was switched off. And I hadn't thought about what to do. I had no backup.
was the process all right?
The process was, it's better now because I know it's better now because I speak to people, but and each individual's experience with it is different. I was so embarrassed about why I was leaving.
Yeah.
I disappeared. I hid myself off, cut off my mates who understood me, and probably threw myself under the bus more so than if I'd have tried to engage with people. But because at the time the military weren't too sure what to do with me, I was allowed to make my own decisions when I probably... It's like when you break yourself, you don't make your own decisions. There's a physio there, an expert, that is like there going, right, this is what you do. It's difficult with the mind because obviously no one really knows, but, you know, I was allowed to take myself away. I disappeared into the southwest of the country and hid under a rock, which was the worst thing I could have done. I didn't speak to like-minded people. I didn't think about what I was going to do. I said to myself, I've obviously broken myself doing that, so I need to do a normal thing, a normal job. And that normal job was what broke me even more. I didn't look at what I was on as a journey. I saw it as a chore, and I was going deeper and deeper. I was told, the minute you leave the military, you'll feel great. And I left the military and I felt worse. I was in a pit. I felt like I was failing at everything. My relationships were screwed. My relationship with my kids was screwed. I was getting into trouble at this. I tried to force myself into a corporate job, and I was getting into trouble doing that. That's another story, which is quite funny. And I ended up, I was stood on top of a cliff thinking about ending it all, because I was just like, well, I've obviously served my purpose on this planet, and it wasn't like, it's not like you don't think about ending it, you think about sparing everyone else, because like, I'm just a hindrance. And I obviously didn't do it because I'm sat here.
And what like, before we get to the corporate job story, what
We need to cut that.
and what was it that kind of like pulled you out of it in the end?
I stood on top of a cliff in a shit state, and I was like that. I either launch myself off this and it's done, it's black, or I turn around and I start making changes. I change stuff and be honest with myself. Because even though I knew I'd been medically discharged, deep down, for the reasons that I'd been discharged, deep down I hadn't accepted it. I hadn't taken that on board, and so I wasn't addressing any issues. I wasn't thinking about who I was and what I needed to do to make myself happy. I was forcing something that wasn't me. And I thought, well, obviously I have to make some changes. So I was like, I will do that. And I just turned around and walked away, and then made some pretty drastic decisions which needed to be made. And then what I did, all of a sudden I was like, 'cause I remembered what I was taught as a 16-year-old recruit, like an ethos, a culture to live by, and I just was like, right, I'm going to live by that again as me. And I just made some drastic decisions and started to see my life. I didn't know where I was going. I had no plans. I was like, I'm on a journey, and like journeys are supposed to be fun, so have a laugh, meet loads of people. Some people you meet you might not get on with, doesn't matter. Don't give them too much.
Doing that by yourself and making a decision by yourself is like amazing. Like, I think a lot of people need help to do that, don't they? And did anyone help you in the end? Or
Oh yeah. I had a lot of help. Like, that was my bit. That was the bit that I did. Yeah, okay. I sort of turned around, made that decision in my head. Then the journey was finding people that could help me. And so a couple of people to begin with weren't right for me. I found a therapist who was like a hippie, and like she was great. She made me realise and think about ways that I needed to lead my life, I suppose. And weirdly, the corporate job I was in, the guy that ran it, the MD, when he gave me the job, he was like, "This is not for you. But I'm going to give you a job, so you've got a job. So just use it for what you need. Learn something." This MD, he basically allowed me to use his med care that comes with his position in
insurance
the business.
and all that.
Yeah, he managed to square that away, and I went on this journey. And then when it came to the crunch of me genuinely turning around to me and saying, "I cannot do this job anymore. I'm going to leave." And it was like, I'd done 18 months, I'd done no time, and he was like, "Don't leave." He goes, "I'll make you redundant." The bloke, I'm still mates with him. I owe him an awful lot, and I'm lucky. Do you know what I mean? I'm very aware that I'm lucky. The thing I don't understand, or I don't know about rugby, is do they have that structure in place to help people with their transition? Because they know it's kind of like rugby in general. The sport knows that it's like a sausage factory, and it's just churning out, and at the end, there's a load of
but there's in sport in general, there's obviously that's that inevitability of like you will finish, and you don't know whether you're going to finish when, but you will finish, and you will have to, apart from maybe football or so on, you will have to continue to work. So there is that. I think people are just slowly, along with all the sort of mental health awareness in the last, 10 years would you say, has really ramped up?
Yeah, 100%.
5 years. I think that's becoming like high on the agenda of people like the RPA, which is Rugby Players Association, like clubs, Clubs are huge into it now, and they definitely weren't before. So there's that side I think is growing hugely. But I mean, you can see it coming, and it's that cut through of trying to find a way to talk to the players to get them to do something, even if it's just something. I think it puts you in a lot better place. So,
if I'd have joined, and it can go further back than this, but at 16 I joined the Marines. You go into intensive 30 weeks, it's now 32 weeks, you go into an intensive 30 weeks of training where they're teaching you to be a soldier. At no point in that 30 weeks do they say, right, all this stuff we're asking you to do might have an impact on you. And if at some point in your career you might feel like A, B or C, that's cool, don't worry about it, because you can do X, Y or Z. Now, 100%, if I'd have got that, I'd have paid it no attention whatsoever. But when I started to feel as an older person like A, B or C, I'd be like, well, I've been told this is all right. And I've got a few things that I can call upon, because I've been told that's all right. This is normal. And if the earlier you hit it and make it normal, and you can be talking to them then about, you need to start thinking about 22 years time. We want everything out of you, but let's start. Always have something in your back of your mind about thinking of what you might be wanting to do after this stuff is over.
Obviously, you just retired. I retired 2 years ago, and when I look back, if I didn't have 4-5, honestly don't know what I'd be doing. And that started the last 2 years that I was playing rugby. And I thought, in my head, I thought that I was ready to I was I made some investments in property and stuff like that, and which every sportsman seems to do for some reason, invest in properties. But I look back now and I'm like, if I didn't have 4-5, I honestly don't know what I'd be doing. I don't have a skill set to go into the city or do anything else. But I just count myself super lucky that this happened and we kind of went for it. But even then, having that to go into is not nothing's easy, is it? But it's for me, the routine of not having rugby was super difficult. Because you have 20 years, so say 15 to 35 of just being told, well, similar to you, I guess, you'd be 7:30 physio, 9 o'clock in the gym, 11 on the pitch, 1 on the pitch, lunch after. and then it was kind of straight out of that into the real world, as we like to call it. And it was just like I remember getting ill once. I said to Mrs. I need to go to the doctor. I was like, how do I book a doctor?
No.
How do I go and see a doctor? Like, I literally had no idea how to do it.
Yeah,
And I was like, jeez. And then like going to the gym, I still find it hard now, because without being given like a time and a program, like that's something that I find hard. And I know, like I still know now that I should be doing it more, because like every time I do it, I feel better, like mentally, physically. But it's just like getting that into my daily routine.
So as I've retired pretty much last week or the week before, I've kind of like trying to de-risk myself and sort of speaking to as many people to see what they do post-retirement to keep themselves, you know, I guess away from maybe mental health issues, away from turning into a fat lump and so on. So like they spoke about making sure you're doing exercise consistently, as obviously it has been such a huge part of routine. Talked about nutrition, talked around surrounding yourself with decent people, a group that you can, you know, share stuff with and be open enough with. What's kind of been your routine since you've left? Is there anything that, what's been your routine?
I didn't have one to begin with because I was in a right state.
Yeah.
Then I realised I needed routine, and I'm very much now. I'm someone that knows I need a routine, but it's not hard. It's not set in stone. I just, no matter what I'm doing, because I'm always moving around. I'm like, my routine's going to change, but I'm going to adapt. I'm going to have a new routine, and I'm going to, even if it's just for 2 days, I'll have a 2-day routine. Just so I'm sort of like, and it's not like if that then falls apart, I turn into an absolute flapping headless chicken. I'm just like, okay, it's cool, we'll go again, but I need to hit these milestones. And you know, a routine for me is, I love early mornings now, not super early, but I love early mornings. And I have like cold showers, cold water immersion.
So is this Wim Hof?
No.
Is that a brand? Is that a brand? Is it, or is that?
No, just get yourself in there.
Yeah.
I've started cold showers.
It's good, isn't it?
It is, honestly, it's a game changer.
It is 100%.
I've also started cold showers in the last month, but that's purely because I haven't figured out how to turn the hot water in.
You haven't paid the bill
in the house that I've just moved into.
But check in with myself. So this sounds odd, but as an example, I'll sit on the end of the bed and I'm like, okay, how do I feel this morning? If I'm feeling good, I'm like, okay.
It's an internal conversation.
Yeah. If I'm feeling off, and this can happen any time throughout the day, instead of ignoring it, I will sit down and be like, why do I feel like that? And explore it. And within minutes, you feel better. Even if you haven't worked it out, you feel better because you've checked in.
Is that something you learn, or is that something like...
I had to force myself to do it at first, and now it just happens.
But as someone said, look, why don't you try this? Or like, how do you even think about coming up with that as a strategy?
It was a take on a couple of things. So when I was in the dark place, I suddenly realised that to lead a life that is happy, we as adults need to act more like 18-month-old toddlers. And that's about living in the now. Like, we don't do it as adults. We dwell on the past, all our mistakes and decisions, and we worry about the future, and we don't concentrate on what actually matters. If you put an 18-month kid down and ask it to walk over there, it will take 45 minutes to do a 2-second walk. It'll inquire into everything that it wants to inquire into and be inquisitive. It will fall over, hurt itself, cry, pick itself up, do exactly the same thing again, because all it is doing is living in the now, and it's having a great time. And we should do more of that. So there was a bit of that, and then I was like, well, hang on a minute, I'm also an adult, which means I know I've got like diary dates and milestones, and I'm going to feel differently about things because I've taught myself to do that. So linked into that, to allow myself to still be in the moment, I need to like check in with myself. If I feel bad, then there's a reason for it. Why do I feel bad? And normally as well, you work it out and you're like, well, I'm actually allowed to feel shit about that.
Yeah.
Because something's happened. And like embrace it. Yeah, okay. This, you know.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to feel down some days actually because I've broken my leg.
Yeah.
That's all right. You know, humans can't just go, you've got to be positive all the time.
Yeah.
You have to have that ebb and flow. It's about accepting it though. A lot of people don't accept it.
Probably that last bit, which probably not enough thought goes into. That like acceptance of, I am injured. I can feel like that. It's just an interesting concept. So, folks, you talked about allowing yourself to be in the moment. Like, that's a conscious step. Like, how do you get to that point? What's allowed you to allow yourself to do that?
Because I was not doing it, and what was happening as a result was bad. So I was making decisions that were emotionally driven, and that is bad. If you're angry, you're going to hurt someone, including yourself. If you're jealous, you're going to do something stupid. If you're anxious, you're going to... All emotional driven decisions normally end up badly. They normally end badly. An emotion, for me, and I don't know how I work this out in answer to your question, but an emotion is like an indicator to you that something is happening, and you probably need to pay attention. So if you're angry, something's happened to make you angry. Don't allow that emotion to run away with itself, because you will be fucked.
Yeah.
How many people do you see getting angry in public? As an example, knocking someone out. Next thing you know, they're going through the legal system, and they could lose their freedom or something like that, because they essentially weren't able to check in with themselves. And I could see that happening, and I was like, hang on a minute, do I want to be going down that route? How do I stop this? And it was like, as you feel, and what I did, the military did teach me this, is as you feel an emotion taking charge, acknowledge it, sort of look at it, and then look at how you can turn it into a positive. Normally means just slow down, breathe, and you know, take a couple of seconds, and like you do it in the military. You're in the middle of a gunfight, and there's like it's moving at 1,000 miles an hour, and they somehow manage to teach you to get behind a wall, have a moment. I've seen blokes get the cooker out and start cooking in the middle of like that, get a cup of tea on and go like that. What's going on here? And then you make a proper balanced decision, and then you swing into action. It's the same with my head, I think. I'm like, if I'm feeling rubbish, I'm like, well, that means something's going on. What's going on? It could be like, there's something in my head, I haven't paid my VAT. You know, and then I'm like, okay, and then the minute you do it, or you look at how you try and get the money that you shouldn't have spent back together.
Big old VAT bill.
You feel, mate, I'd
take 10 moments on that one. I was like, oh, I'll just walk out.
But yeah, I think that's what it came from. It's
fascinating that, like, everyone finds different ways in the end. So it might be going to therapy, you might say it might be exercise, like, you know, I know I'd be pretty screwed with exercise. It might be having your moment, or might be going to a spa day, or whatever it is. Like, it's fascinating how people just find their different ways.
Yeah.
The Monday blues is not far off. Like, if I wake up on a Monday morning, and I feel shit.
Yeah.
I'll sit on the end of the bed and I'm like, why do I feel shit? Yeah. The minute you start doing that, you start feeling better about yourself. Because living in London is classic. You'll see so many people stomping around in a bad mood because they woke up and they never checked in with themselves. They tried to ignore it. They're shit to be around. They're narky. They're in a rush. They make bad decisions because of it. If they'd have just taken 5 minutes to go, why do I feel bad? I am allowed. Oh right, yeah. Okay, I'm going to sort that out. Or it could be, I need a cup of coffee. Walk round the common, go to the gym later, and you're like, because you're like, okay, I can't do it now, I can do it then. Oh yeah, I feel better about myself.
Something that I often realise on social media, like obviously it's massive, it's growing. You've got your TikToks, your Instagrams, your Twitters. Like, how do you pick up on like that sort of external noise and what people are putting out there all the time?
So I learned how to deal with social media before social media existed, and that was because
you're old as fuck.
It's true, mate. It's true. When I first joined the Special Forces, that was like very early 2000s. There was none of that, and there was very little infrastructure in places we went to. So I remember going away. I went on a 9-month tour, and there was no way of phoning home apart from maybe once or twice a month on a satellite phone that cost an absolute fortune, and you'd get bollocked for doing it. And so when we were out there, we as a group of lads, there's only a small amount of us, we were like, this is ridiculous. In this day and age, we can't get hold of our families, we can't be in touch, we can't see what's going on, we're missing the World Cup, all that stuff, right? And we dripped about it and we moaned. Then, literally, the infrastructure suddenly flooded into these areas where we were working, and we had everything at our disposal. We had like internet cabins, we could watch Sky, we could phone home whenever we wanted to, we could go on to dating sites if that's what you wanted and interact with people back home. And we thought at first it was brilliant. And it was probably the worst thing that ever happened to us. And because there was, when we were doing the job that we did, you didn't need that outside influence. I remember I had a massive Barney argument with my missus before going out on the ground on what ended up being an absolute nightmare of a mission, whatever you want to call it, and there was all sorts going on. And I can remember not having my head in the game, and I was like, hang on a minute, all this stuff that we wanted is just bringing outside noise. It doesn't really matter. So when social media kicked off properly, for me, after I left the military, I remember now just to use it for what it is, but don't pay attention to it, because none of the noise on there is going to help me with my life. The only thing that's going to help me in my life is me and the people around it, me and the people around me. So I think I'll always remember that story, because be careful what you wish for, and ultimately what you wish for normally trips you up. And the same goes for social media. You know, I'm lost without my phone. I'm always looking for it, looking for TikTok, looking for Insta, and actually then every now and again I'm like, put it down, ignore it, don't read comments, because there's people out there that...
Yeah.
So if there were 3 things you'd say to keep your mental health in check?
Foxy top 3, let's have it.
Top 3, yeah, what would you say?
Live like an 18-month-old kid.
Yeah.
Check in with yourself, don't ignore your emotion.
Yeah.
Lead a reasonably healthy and balanced lifestyle.
Like
And the reason I say that, and I didn't realise this until not that long ago, is the more we abuse our bodies, the less prepared we are for things. So imagine if you could lead your life in parallel, this is about resilience, if you could lead your life in parallel twice at the same time, I know it's odd, but on each lifeline, you lived slightly differently. So on one, you're always on the piss out with your mates, you don't eat healthily, kebabs, KFCs, whatever it is, you don't sleep very well. The other one, you balance it, you sleep really well, you eat healthily, and you get decent sleep. Now, whilst you're going through those lines at the same time, every time there's a traumatic incident, whatever that looks like, whether it's a car crash or a divorce, they happen at the same times. 100%, the one where you've looked after yourself just that little bit more, you will bounce back from those situations quicker. 100%.
Yeah.
Because you prepared yourself, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, or know it, you have prepared yourself to bounce back quicker.
You're taking the risk out of
Yeah.
allowing yourself to be into that mental health spiral.
Yeah. They're all things that you put in place that are risk mitigators against having bad mental health.
That's how I've looked at my retirement, in terms of, like, how can I set up stuff so that I'm, you know, you hear so many, there's stats around it, and the stats are horrific.
Yeah.
And I just try and think, how can I mitigate the risk of being another stat? Whether that's been trying to be set up off field, whether it's being around friends, whether it's continuing to put like a good chunk in my schedule for exercise, and trying to learn off, you know, what people who are retired have said. I think it's like the risk is that a certain proportion will fall into that trap. It's just how can you how can you mitigate it?
Exactly.
The bit I struggle with is like the balance, because with rugby, it was all like you had the fun within the rugby, so it was like always in there. But like, like I always I'm a pretty simple person. Like I can only focus on one thing.
Yeah.
But like now that we're outside, now I've retired, like I'm focused on 4five and the business. And like I struggle to find that balance, especially because I've got like a 3-year-old, which like just like jumps in there all the time, which is amazing. She's amazing. I love her so much. But like it's super challenging, right? Because like that's someone, obviously she takes precedent over everything. So like just finding the balance of like family time, like eating well, training, which is probably the thing I'm lacking most at the minute. But like, and the more we talk, the more I realise every time I train or do yoga, like I feel like the endorphins now when I train,
Yeah.
Like I actually feel them because when I was playing rugby and stuff, I used to train. I used to be like, get
Ground
off the
down.
bench.
Yeah.
But like now, like I actually feel I do feel so much better when I do it. But it's just for me, I struggle to find the time.
Yeah.
Do you know the best way to do it is there's no point creating a schedule or saying I'm going to give my kid an hour and a half there, my missus, partner an hour and a half there, because that is never going to happen. We're humans. Stuff will happen. Your kid will demand more time. That means it impacts this. That means you're getting angry because you're not having enough time with your partner or whatever. You should try and balance it out, but at the same time, the key to all of it is good communication. Do you know what I mean? If you're struggling, talk to your partner and be like, do you know what, I've tried to do this and this and this, and I've actually found myself putting myself in a hole. And the minute you start doing that, the other person, they don't want to screw you. They just want to be like, oh, right, I'm glad you actually said that. Same with businesses, you know. Mate, why did you do that? Well, because I did that because it was emotionally driven. Okay, well, you know, let's work it out. Now, the reason most things fall apart, routines included, is because there's no communication. You're trying to live with something inside your own head and no one else understands it because you haven't communicated it out. Do you know what I mean?
Foxy, more?
Why not?
Oh, we're wrapping up now. So.
Yeah, no, I can. You know.
Do you want the last cream puff?
Nah, sure. We're alright. Foxy, it's been a treat for us to catch up with you. Obviously, share your ridiculous amounts of, I guess, experience within this sort of mental health space. So thanks for coming down. It's been a treat.
No, I appreciate it. It's been good to sit with a couple of legends. And actually, you're doing really well for yourself because this place is fat.
It's not bad, is it?
Yeah.
I renovated it last year.
I mean,
so,
mate,
yeah.
you've done big things here. Big things. CBD. Who'd have thought?